Excuse me, Cotton. Cotton! Oh, hello, yes, handler. What is it? I have a new quest for you. Oh, a new quest? Oh, boy, I love new things. It's a small monster quest. Oh, okay, yeah, all right. I mean, I can handle that. I am the small game hunter, after all. It's Vespoids. Fuck off. Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, as much as we love the creatures in this series from the top to the bottom, every single one is interesting in their own right. However, regardless of how cool the concept of a monster may be in theory, every hunter in the world has that one creature, that one monster that they absolutely despise having to actually hunt. Today, my darling daisies, it is time for the list of the top 5 hated monsters in all of Monster Hunter, with this being more of a community list, a list of the 5 monsters that the most hunters actively avoid fighting. So without further ado, let's begin with
Honorable Mention: Aggressive Small Monsters.
And this one goes for just about any small monster that will actively get in the way of your hunting experience, from something as small as a Gastrodon walking up and hitting you once, all the way up to Vespoids paralyzing you, or Khonshu actively armoring the monster in front of you. And the moment that these creatures interrupt you, in that exact specific moment, you hate them, even if you don't actively hold on to that hate quite as much as the monsters on the proper list itself, which starts with
Number 5.
This is fine.
Lunastra.
Now, this one has always been disliked by the community at large for one reason or another. After all, in the old world, Lunastra was pretty much just a carbon copy of Teostra, but, you know, blue and stuff. In the new world, she makes the complaint irrelevant by getting her own almost entirely unique moveset, and most people hate it.
You're goddamn right.
Between the fire puddles on the floor that actively fire more fire out of them when hit by fire, the wind pressure, the passive heat aura, and of course the supernova itself with its crazy heat damage filling the air all around it, while also making all the fire puddles spit stuff out, this thing is honestly a bit of a nightmare to deal with. And then of course, in her master rank, her new move was another heat damage attack, and of course, her supernova damage went up too. So, you know, if you didn't hate fighting her before, you probably do now. All of that said, this is one where on a personal level, I don't feel it really. Like, sure, don't get me wrong, I consider the fight to be a chore and a half to actually do, and it is hard as hell. But I love Lunastra so much as a conceptual, theoretical monster that I can't actually say that I hate fighting her. It makes me too happy to see her in her moves in the first place. Having not fought Old World Luna, my first imprint of her existence was this crazy blue fire lioness based around the moon, who had a ridiculous number of crescent moon-shaped attacks, and then the fire puddles, aside from the annoyance they cause, are just such a neat and interesting little mechanic to me. I mean, the full fires even completely block ranged shots. But today, this is not my list, or at least I'm not trying to let my bias affect the results, so Lunastra gets to sit in timeout here at number 5.
Number 4.
Billy.
You.
Billy, we've already told me off. Let's move on.
You're tacky and I hate you.
Cephadrome.
Ugh. That's about the only thing I can really say, honestly. This is probably one of the most forgettable fights that I've had in the entire Monster Hunter series. However, I'm not sure if that is because it's just sort of an creature from the get-go, or it is my mind trying to block out the fact that he exists in the first place, in order to forget my time spent fighting him. He looks silly, like not in a fun way, just a silly way. He looks weird, like his dimensions don't make any sort of sense to me or my brain. His face looks like they were going for a hammerhead shark type of aesthetic, but then the rest of him just removes any sort of cool factor that you could have gained by giving him a shark face. And then the fight. Christ, if you want to spend 20 minutes running around in the sand waiting for a monster to consider fighting you, this is the fight for you. It's like someone saw that Diablo's dig attack and thought, wait a second, what if this was an entire fight?
That's a wonderful idea.
And yes, like the Diablos, you can use sonic bombs to take them out of the sand, but that's like recommending flashing the life out of a flying monster. Sure, you can do it, but it doesn't change the monster itself. It doesn't change the way it was designed. When he does eventually come out of the sand, you're in for basically a slower, less damaging Plesioth with less health. He hip checks, though his hitbox is far less egregious. He shoots beams out of the sand very occasionally, and he has that nasty tail swipe. But he's short, he's smaller, so you can hit his head relatively consistently with every weapon. And he is an early tier monster with a tiny health pool, so at the end of the day, you can only really hate him so much.
Number 3. Kushala Daora.
Is this surprising? No? I wonder why. Even in the old world, when aerial fight mechanics were a tiny bit more tame as far as Kushala went at least, I always remember hearing people complain about having to fight him, like, ah man, not that one again. It's not a new thing. However, it is arguable that the Monster Hunter world actually made it worse by making Kushala better. His wind aura is one of the most infuriating things I have ever encountered as a melee weapon user. The fact that he can decide to move an inch closer to you while you are mid-swing, and because of his minute changes, you get flinched. What's even worse is because it's just an aura around him, it also activates during his own attacks. So if you accidentally walk up to him just before he attacks you, you will be flinched and won't even have the opportunity to roll. Dodge! And then there's the consistently being in the air, always flying, but never really achieving much. I actually find that Kushala in the air is significantly less threatening than Kushala on the ground. However, air Kushala is about 20 times more annoying. Even in base world, when you had basically unlimited flash pods, people hated to have to fight him. Not to mention his tempered version, you could only flash 4 times, or his arch-tempered version that simply could not be flashed in the first place. And then of course, the tornadoes. If you get knocked back by one of his normal attacks into the exact middle of an existing tornado, you could take 2 or 3 hits of tornado damage before you make it out. The distance the tornado knocks you back is less distance than the middle of the tornado to the end of the tornado. So you can get hit by the tornado and still be in the tornado to take another hit. That is ridiculous to me. Conceptually, I think Kushala is at a minimum quite a neat monster. His fight, however, is pretty universally regarded as an unenjoyable, hated experience.
Number 2. Bulldrome.
As if you didn't expect to see it here, the Bulldrome itself finally makes an appearance. This has got to be one of the most infuriating things I've ever experienced. Not even just in Monster Hunter, just in games in general. Basically a large boar. This fanged beast's moveset consists of one thing. Charge, charge, charge. It's like it looked over a ridge and saw Tigrex fighting, saw the Tigrex do one attack, then turned around and said, "That's it, I'm modeling my entire life after this singular moment, that's it." And then it does. Charge, 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 charge. Oh, what's this? He brought the Bullfango along with him. What do they do again? Charge, charge, charge. You get the point. It's a funny concept, and it makes sense to have one of these somewhere in the series because it's quite clear that the devs knew what they were doing when they made the Bulldrome. It was purposely designed to be super frustrating, though not actually hard per se. The one singular redeeming factor of the Bulldrome, probably the one reason it isn't at the top of this list, is that it is a super low tier monster with a tiny health pool, at least comparatively, meaning even though Bulldrome is an absolute hellscape of a fight to be in, at least it is over relatively quick.
Number 1.
Just do what Fish is doing!
Plesioth.
And was there even any doubt? Of course, the winner of Most Hated Monster goes to the original fish boy himself, Plesioth. From the fact that he starts the fight in the water, not even coming to attack you unless you have a sonic bomb or a ton of patience, from that initial moment, you sort of get a feel for this fight. Once you start fighting, the most noticeable thing about it is that this fish is just way too big for a fish. You can barely reach his face with smaller melee weapons, and the same goes for his tail, meaning a lot of people are sort of relegated to just attacking his chunky thighs for the entire fight, which of course makes an even bigger deal out of just how annoying his hip check is.
I surrender!
Which even in GU, which was the first time I fought him personally, was not a fun thing to deal with, and I fully understand that I dealt with probably the friendliest, most tame version of Plesioth and his hip check that there has ever been. I mean, his hip check hitbox is legendary for a reason. It used to be massive, but even then I think the exaggeration of its size is just a way for hunters to get their frustration out about the fight as a whole, because my main complaint, personally, from my time with him, is actually the fucking tail swipe. The entirety of this thing's body counts as a weapon every time it moves, and if it spins its tail, it basically creates a 360-degree death ball with minimal warning. It's disgusting. And then there is the tiny water jet beams, which are neat but painful, and of course, because why not, let's also let this piece of fish have a sleep bite too, just for emphasis. The one thing I will say here is that a lot of people seem to hate him visually, like from the ground up they don't like him. But me personally, I think he's sort of redeemable in this category. I think a New World style Plesioth could look very, very good. For a Piscine Wyvern, at least. Alright everyone, I've been Cotton Dinosaur, and this has been the top 5 hated monsters in the entirety of Monster Hunter. Do you agree with these? What monsters do you absolutely hate hunting? Like if you liked the video, subscribe and hit the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet. This is the brand new outro to tell you all the things that you do that we love, so let's start with something simple and say, oh, we love your eyes. When they're watching us play video games, when we make a bunch of jokes that are kinda lame, or when they gaze upon our failures as we try to kill the monsters or important news about the Kingdom Animalia. Rage, Cotton, and Hollow are all here, talking about the things you want to hear, so if you want to be the first to hear, like and subscribe and the bell and we'll cheer. Some of you are patrons even though we are all the noobs and you're the pros. There's nothing we can do to thank you. No, really, there's nothing we could possibly do. Goodbye.